My name's Jamie Wilson, and I'm doing my poetry presentation on Leda and the Swan by B Yeats. So, this poem is about a girl who is raped by a swan. The swan is actually not a regular swan, it's Zeus. He's a Greek god, and for those of you who don't know much about Greek mythology, Zeus was like god of all gods, even though they were siblings. There's a lot of them. I don't even know all of them by name, but there was a lot of them, and he was basically king of them all. And bestiality was not above them. So he would often come off his mountain, Mount Olympus, and in the form of a different animal, sometimes a bull, and in this case a swan, and take advantage of some kind of poor woman and impregnate her with his half human, half god baby that they often called demigods, who either did really marvelous things or terrible things. So it made life interesting. But basically, him raping her in the story actually leads into one of the elements that I wanted to talk about, which was the symbolic. He ends up raping Leda, and she later on goes home and sleeps with her husband. And so she is impregnated with four children, two of which are demigods, and the other two are children of her husband and are just regular human beings. If you're really interested in it, one of them ends up murdering the other, and it's just a really brutal family tree. But one of her children that she had was Helen, and she was supposed to be this most beautiful girl, and she ends up marrying a king, and gets later on gets kidnapped because of her beauty, and it begins this huge Trojan War, and her brother-in-law, who's Agamemnon, which I can't say his name very well, I apologize, but he ends up getting killed because of it. So, back to the symbolic reasoning in the poem. One of the lines reads, "A shudder in the loins engenders there a broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead." So, I mean, that's pretty interesting if you think about it. A shudder in the loins. Zeus in his swan form is finishing off inside of her and impregnating this woman during this rape, and that actually starts, like a whole into the future. It's a if he hadn't raped Leda and impregnated her with Helen, then Helen wouldn't have been married to that king, and she wouldn't have been able to be kidnapped, and then there would have been no Trojan War. Um, Pretty interesting stuff. So it all began because of that. So I think it's very symbolic and interesting and pretty cool. The second element I would like to talk about is the speaker. Who is the speaker of this poem? I believe it's W.B. Yeats. He's basically talking about this. He's like, as if he's there watching it, standing behind a tree, not doing anything, just, walking along, and oh my god, a swan's raping a woman, and he's basically taking notes over it. And towards the very end of the poem, it's pretty interesting because he goes from, describing in detail about what's going on to this poor girl to asking, wondering if this girl knew it was Zeus, wondering if she understood what he was doing or if she really thought it was just a regular swan. Um, he basically just kind of like inquisitive, wondering, how she might have felt about it, or how is this leading into the future, how this could have affected the future later on, and so I think that's pretty interesting. So the layout basically, it's pretty cool. It starts off as a sudden blow. That's the very first sentence, which is the very first moment she meets Zeus, but you're not really too sure if she actually knows it was Zeus or not at that moment. And it's just, and then it just, it's just basically, it started with a blow, and the form is, the layout of the poem is just very structured. It just keeps following, one detail after the other until he does his deed, and then it ends with what has this rape lead to for the future. So yes, that's basically what my poem's about, and if you're interested, you should definitely look more into it and read it yourself. Thank you.